Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
The new Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Thursday, June 8th, 2017. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, the Comey testimony, analysis of a botched coup attempt to overthrow the U.S. president, where even Chris Matthews was forced to admit the Russia collusion theory is over.
Is that somewhere along the line in the last year, the president had something to do with colluding with the Russians? And yet what came apart this morning was that theory.
Meanwhile, the Senate Intelligence Committee is not investigating the abuse of the intelligence community's powers for political purposes. Then, UK election results live, and exit polls suggest Britain is on a collision course for a hung parliament. All that plus London Mayor Sadiq Khan is a complete idiot. You got that right. That's up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. The key is to be aware of this attack and to fight back against it. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs harvested around the planet and then concentrated for maximum potency. I've always believed in nutrition and herbs. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by Infowars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. Visit InfowarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality and other powerful products from Infowars Life.
Check out these amazing deals at InfowarsStore.com. 25% off BioTrue Selenium, a powerful antioxidant and back in stock Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste. Now 33% off. And while you're there, check out the Total Oral Care Pack, which combines our organic mouthwash with the amazing Super Blue toothpaste. Now 37% off. All available right now at InfowarsStore.com.
Your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated.
There you go. That's a very dangerous act, to testify and to swear that you're going to tell the truth. James Comey today tried to take out Donald Trump with a suicide attack. And what he wound up doing, Trump wasn't in the room. He didn't get Donald Trump. Instead, he seriously damaged himself, opened himself up for criminal charges, as well as seriously hurting mainstream media, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch in particular. We're going to take a look at what people are saying. And, of course, pretty much CNN is going on all day saying, well, he called Donald Trump a liar, therefore Donald Trump is a liar. No, we're going to have the response to that. But I want you to hear what Chris Matthews said, because I think Chris Matthews was honest about this. He said this whole thing today came apart, and here's why Chris Matthews thinks that it came apart.
Them played. But the big story to me has always been, as all of us, and I think Nicole really touched on it there, the assumption of the critics of the president, of his pursuers, you might say, is that somewhere along the line in the last year, the president had something to do with colluding with the Russians, something to do with a helping hand, encouraging them, feeding their desire to affect the election in some way, some role they played, some conversation he had with Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort or somewhere. And
okay, so he says the big story, as far as he sees it, is that there was some kind of collusion with Russia. He said that was what came apart this morning. That theory. That was what he believed. Actually, we never believed that. We always believed that this was a red herring meant to distract people from what really happened. People blowing the whistle on the corruption within the Democrat Party. That worked so well for them to misdirect information away to the Russians that they decided that they would use that to not only try to freeze the Trump administration, but try to get process crimes, which I think now we've seen James Comey commit. Perjury. The thing has backfired on them. They have been hoisted by their own petard. We're going to tell you how he created this suicide vest that he had. We're going to tell you how he pulled the fuse on it, and we're going to tell you who else was injured in this. But Chris Matthews had more to say about this. He said the first thing was the Russian collusion. That fell apart. But then he had something else to say. He said the next part of this was the Flynn connection, that he was central in some way to the investigation. That was blown apart. This is what he had to say.
And yet what came apart this morning was that theory, because in two regards. The president said, according to the written testimony of Mr. Comey, go ahead and get anybody satellite to my operation and nail them. I'm with you on that. So that would mean Manafort, Carter Page, someone else like that. And then he also came across what was fascinating. Comey said that basically Flynn wasn't central to the Russian investigation, that he was touching on it, that there was, of course, Flynn hadn't honest, we assume wasn't honest in his answering of the...
Okay, now what he's saying here essentially is that the idea that Flynn might have been in a position to testify against Trump, this was killed today in this testimony. And he also went on to say, if that's not the case, where's the there? In other words, as we've all been saying, as we had the cartoon yesterday, it's a big nothing burger. There's absolutely nothing when you look inside. We had that cartoon of Hillary Clinton at McClinton's. She was working at a burger joint, and she said, do you want lies with that? With that burger? With that nothing burger? All right, let's take a look at what this memo that he put out, the 7-page memo that he put out yesterday. He did not, fortunately, spared us, and he did not read that memo today. But it keyed on 3 terms and the ways that they used it semantically. Loyal, hope, and the other term was lift the cloud. Lift the cloud of the investigation. Let's take a look at those 3 aspects. First of all, loyal. Okay, let's talk about the idea that you can be loyal to me. Trump knew his connections, his long connections to the Clinton crime machine. And if there was anything that was said in his terms, and of course, his lawyer, we're going to talk about his lawyer's response to that, saying, no, he never said anything about loyalty. So he completely shut that down. But let's just go with Comey's testimony at this moment right here. What did he mean by loyal? Did he mean, maybe you're not going to be stabbing me in the back, are you? Can I trust you not to be working for the Clintons if you stay as FBI director? Because they talked about his same concerns about the number 2 guy, McCabe, whose wife was tightly tied to the Clintons and got a great deal of money in terms of running for office in Virginia from the Clinton Foundation. Here's what was said about McCabe, and I think this gives us an idea of the types of concerns that Donald Trump had, knowing Comey's background. But let's talk about it in terms of the number 2 guy. He was more forthright about that.
As you understood it, was that McCabe's wife had received campaign money from what I assume means Terry McAuliffe.
Yes, sir. That's
who was very close to the Clintons. And so why had the president at any point in time expressed to you concern, opposition, potential opposition to McCabe? I don't like this guy because he got money from someone that's close to Clinton.
He had asked me during previous conversations about Andy McCabe and said, in essence, how's he going to be with me as president? I was pretty rough on him on the campaign trail.
So in other words, can I trust him? This is a guy that's got close ties to the Clinton. Maybe you have close ties to the Clinton too, okay? We all know that he has close ties to the Clinton Foundation and to the Clintons. Now, let's go back. He said, used the term loyalty quite a bit in his deposition. We heard today from Trump's private attorney, Mark Kasowitz, and he had this to say. He said the president never, in any form or substance, directed or suggested that Mr. Comey stop investigating anyone, including suggesting that Mr. Comey let Flynn go. As he publicly said the next day, he did say to Mr. Comey, General Flynn is a good guy. He has been through a lot, and also asked how General Flynn is doing. Admiral Rogers has testified that the president never directed him to do anything illegal, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate, and that he never pressured him to do so. Director Coates said the same thing. The president likewise never pressured Mr. Comey. Then he goes to say this about loyalty. He said the president also never told Mr. Comey, I need loyalty. I expect loyalty in any form or substance. Of course, the office of the president is entitled to expect loyalty from those who are serving in an administration. So he is under the president. He's in the executive branch as the FBI director. He's under the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is under the president. But he says, and from before this president took office to this day, it is overwhelmingly clear that there have been and continue to be those in government who are actively attempting to undermine this administration with selective and illegal leaks of classified information and privileged communications. And of course, that would be Mr. Comey today by his own admission. That's one of the ways that he blew himself up with his own bomb. Mr. Comey has now admitted that he is one of those leakers, says Kazowitz. He said, today, Mr. Comey admitted that he unilaterally and surreptitiously made unauthorized disclosures to the press of privileged communications with the president. Very well put. That's precisely the issue here. It comes down to a he said, she said. They were together in the room by themselves. And as Comey wrote in his statement, he said, we conclude that given that it was a one-on-one conversation and there was nothing available to corroborate my account, in other words, it's just my word against the president's, but of course, for CNN, that's good enough. CNN is good enough. If Comey says the president's a liar, and it doesn't matter what the president says. He said, we concluded, Comey said, that it made little sense to report this to the Attorney General Sessions because it's just my word against Donald Trump. But then he holds a hearing. Why? Because he was fired. Because he was fired. And because, as we shall see, I think he's trying to cover up something else. All right, let's talk about how they detonated this. And that kind of comes down to the whole term of hope. Let's play first for you a flashback to May 3rd, where the FBI director, James Comey, said he was never pressured about any investigation. And if he had been, he would not have done it, and it would have been a big deal, and he would have told people about it at that time. Of course, that was before he was fired. Here's what he said on May 3rd when he was under oath and testifying.
You would want it, but yeah, we work with the Department of Justice on all of our investigations.
So if the Attorney General or senior officials at the Department of Justice opposes a specific investigation, can they halt that FBI investigation?
In theory, yes.
Has it happened?
Not in my experience, because it would be a big deal to tell the FBI to stop doing something that without an appropriate purpose. I mean, oftentimes they give us opinions that we don't see a case there, and so you ought to stop investing resources in it. But I'm talking about a situation where we were told to stop something for a political reason. That would be a very big deal. It's not happened in my experience.
So he was not told for political purposes to stop an investigation. He was very adamant about that. He said it would be a very big deal. He would report that. He said, sometimes they tell us, hey, you don't have anything here. Why are you continuing this on? We'll get to that in the next section. Lift the cloud. That was the other semantic term that they like to play around with. I first thought when he came out with this, well, he's going to kind of obliquely charge Donald Trump, but he can't really directly come out and do it because if he does, he's going to put himself in a perjury situation. Kind of like when he came out about Hillary Clinton and he said, well, I've concluded my investigation. She's committed this felony, this felony, this felony, but I'm not going to prosecute her. That's the amazing thing about James Comey. Now, the amazing thing about the Washington Post, and I'll give them a little bit of wiggle room because they put this out at 12:07. Maybe they hadn't had time to think about this. They said Comey just blew apart a leading GOP talking point about Trump and Russia. They said that President Trump had asked Comey to drop the FBI probe into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. And that's truly what he said today, putting himself in a perjury situation, not only creating legal jeopardy for him, but also destroying any credibility that he would have on any of these issues. Now, let's talk about how they played this out. First, a Republican comes to him and says, well, you're just saying when you wrote this, you're being very specific about this, that Donald Trump said, well, I hope this doesn't come after Michael Flynn. So he's not really telling you to back off, is he? And then he says, oh, yeah, kind of he is. And then he comes back and we'll play the clip for you from the Democrat where he says, oh, yes, he really was trying to shut down this investigation. Let's play that first clip from the Republican, Risch.
I hope you can let this go. Now, those are his exact words. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you wrote them here and you put them in quotes?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. He did not direct you to let it go.
Not in his words, no.
Not in his words.
He did not order you to let it go.
I felt that way.
Again, those words are not in order.
No. He said, I hope. Now, like me, you probably did hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, charging people with criminal offenses. And of course, you have knowledge of the thousands of cases out there that where people have been charged. Do you know of any case where a person has been charged for obstruction of justice, or for that matter, any other criminal offense, where they said or thought they hoped for an outcome?
I don't know well enough to answer. And the reason I keep saying his words is I took it as a direction.
Right.
I mean, this is the President of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I...
Another Republican senator from Iowa, he's trying to push this back, but he's also throwing a lifeline to Comey. Comey is too stupid to take that. Instead, he pulls the trigger and detonates a perjury charge. He's saying, well, maybe he was just, you know, people could always say, well, I just hope nothing really bad happens with this. And it's like, no, he was really telling me to obstruct justice. See, that's the other part of this. It's not just that Comey contradicted his previous testimony under oath today, but he also put himself in there as an accessory to obstruction of justice. Because if Donald Trump was telling him to shut down an investigation for political purposes, which he said had never happened and would be a big deal, it would be a big deal. And he would be legally obligated to report it. Instead of hanging on to that as if he was J. Edgar Hoover, so that he could blackmail somebody and only coming out with it after he had lost his job. But then he doubles down on this with the Democrat from Maine, Angus King. Here's what they have to say. And they throw in Thomas Becket in this.
States in the Oval Office says something like, I hope, or I suggest, or would you, do you take that as a directive?
Yes. Yes, it rings in my ear as kind of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
I was just going to quote that in 1170, December 29, Henry II said, who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? And then the next day he was killed. Thomas à Becket. That's exactly the same situation. We're thinking along the same lines.
So what they are clearly saying, he came back, he pushed back against a Republican who was trying to help him get away from a perjury charge, trying to help him get away from saying, hey, he asked me to obstruct justice, and I didn't have any problem with that. And instead, he doubles down with this, saying, no, that was really what he wanted me to do. He was throwing that out there. He was pressuring me to do this, to shut this down, to kill this investigation, just as King Henry II told people to kill this meddlesome priest. All right, now let's talk about Lift the Cloud and the collateral damage that was done with this. I think Marco Rubio, we're going to try to play this clip before we go to break. Marco Rubio said, this investigation is a lot of leaks, but not the one that would clear Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say.
Things he asked. Yes, sir.
You know, this investigation is full of leaks left and right. I mean, we've learned more from the newspapers sometimes than we do from our open hearings, for sure. Do you ever wonder why, of all the things in this investigation, the only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks?
I don't know. I find matters that are briefed to the Gang of Eight are pretty tightly
held. There we go. So what he's saying is, that's what's meant by lift the cloud. And he even wrote in his testimony that Donald Trump said, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want you to find out if there's any satellites that are involved. In other words, is there anybody in my sphere of influence that's tangentially involved in this or directly? Let's expose that. Let's get to the bottom of this. But let's finish with this. Let's let this out. You've told me multiple times that I'm not a subject of this investigation. Why can't you put that out? Why can't you lift that cloud if that, in fact, are the terms that he used? We don't know if that, in fact, is the terms that he used. We're going to talk about how this was memorialized, and that also, I believe, raises criminal issues as to the way that this was recorded by Comey. It certainly does violate a confidence and privileged information. We'll be right back.
We've taken thousands of years of known research and put it together with our own 4 years of seeking and testing to find the very best systems that God gave us through Mother Nature to detoxify the body. That's why I'm introducing Z-Shield, toxic metal and chemical defense support. It's made in the USA. It's filled with known compounds from nature that are absolutely associated with detoxifying the body, and it supports the InfoWar. It is a classical 360 win. Our formula at InfoWarsLife.com is, quite frankly, simple. We go out and look at the recognized research, and we take it to the next level of quality, of purity, and of strength. Because this is what I personally use for myself and my family. We've gone through 5 or 6 different permutations in the last 4 years since we launched Infowars Life to actually come up with this. This is the formula that I personally have been taking for over a year, and now we believe we have come as close to perfection when it comes to a detoxifier as you can possibly get. If you're not mitigating the pesticides, the heavy metals, the chemicals, if you're not trying to purify your water, if you're not trying to take products like Z-Shield that are full of known concentrated compounds that'll purify our cells and our bodies, you're crazy. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, and you owe it to the future of this country and the world that patriots stay as healthy and as clean and as focused as you can be, because we need you, the remnant of America, to reignite those brush fires to the next level and to be healthy and as focused as you can be. Because if you're sick, if you're over there on the sidelines and not in the fight, you're basically giving in to the New World Order. Thanks to your support and your prayers, together, we're changing the world. Now it's time to change our bodies with Z-Shield at InfoWarsLife.com.
I want to tell you about some of the products at InfoWarsStore.com. We are under constant attack. You know it by now from the mainstream media. They're trying to attack us on every level now with the YouTube scandal. They're demonetizing our channels, which again takes a huge chunk out of our income, which is why we always appreciate and rely on you getting the products, because that's how we stay afloat. They can't get to us that way. They can't pressure you to not buy the products. They don't have that power. And that's why you're the key to this entire operation. We have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, bubblegum flavor just arrived at InfoWarsStore.com. This is by listener request. Bubblegum flavored Super Blue toothpaste now available at InfoWarsStore.com in limited supply. Again, if you're not using fluoride-free toothpaste by now, then you're absolutely insane. Harvard studies, it reduces IQ, it causes bone cancer. It's not great, let's just put it that way. And I've been using it for about, 15 years now? So you're going to buy it anyway, why not buy it from us? It's in limited supply, but it is available at InfoWarsStore.com with the new bubblegum flavor. Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, and it supports this network, which is under constant demonization and attack, because we don't take big fat checks from George Soros. We don't get put on extremist lists, even though they want us to. That's how they're taking away the YouTube money. That's why we need your support more than ever, because we're not funded by giant corporations who are now pulling the plug on YouTube as they move it into a TV thing, a Netflix model, to drown out independent voices. So support us by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated.
There he goes. He took that oath, and that's the thing that should hang him if we had an honest government. You heard just before we went to break, we had Marco Rubio say this investigation is full of leaks, and yet the one thing that you've made clear today, that you told Donald Trump multiple times that he's not involved in this investigation, that's the one thing that did not leak out. And later on in the investigation, he said, Comey said that he leaked information to the New York Times. And as Donald Trump's lawyer pointed out, he said today, Mr. Comey admitted that he unilaterally and surreptitiously made unauthorized disclosures to the press of privileged communications with the president. So he himself was outed as a leaker. But let's talk about his patronage, because I think this also comes under the lift the cloud issue. The fact that he was cooperating with Lynch in this investigation, saying that he wasn't really comfortable with it, but he didn't really want to have a special investigator because that would just make that go on longer. They didn't want to use certain terms because that would make Hillary Clinton look bad, and yet they don't have any problem continuing this investigation for month after month after month, never clearing people that they know are not under investigation. Here's what he had to say about justice. He said, statue of justice has a blindfold on. You're not supposed to be peeking out to see whether your patron is pleased or not, which is exactly what he did with Hillary Clinton. Let's play that clip.
Quoting you, him saying that he, despite you explaining your independence, he kept coming back to, I need loyalty, I expect loyalty. Had you ever had any of those kind of requests before from anyone else you'd worked for in the government?
No. And what made me uneasy
okay,
was...
You're going to hear where he did have that kind of request. Keep going. Sorry.
The reason that Congress created a 10-year term is so that the director is not feeling as if they're serving with political loyalty owed to any particular person. The statue of justice has a blindfold on because you're not supposed to be peeking out to see whether your patron is pleased or not with what you're doing. It should be about the facts and the law. That's why I became FBI director, to be in that kind of position. So that's why it was so uneasy.
Well, let me move on. My time's running.
So he talks a great deal about patronage. He talked about it in that clip right there. He said, nobody is going to be telling me to do something like that. You don't want to have that. Certainly we don't. And yet he has existed his whole life doing that. Letting Sandy Berger off the hook. It was his decision, along with Loretta Lynch, not to go into this, not to prosecute him, because he had gone into the National Archives, had stolen physical papers, stuffing them into his clothing, taking them out and destroying them. He decided he didn't want to prosecute him. And, of course, doing the same thing for Hillary Clinton. And then he dropped this bombshell. Let's play what he had to say about what Loretta Lynch asked him to do.
Probably the only other consideration that I guess I can talk about in open setting is that at one point the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter, which confused me and concerned me. But that was one of the bricks in the load that led me to conclude I have to step away from the department if we're to close this case credibly.
Let's make it clear, when he says the Attorney General, he's talking about Loretta Lynch. She'd asked him not to call it an investigation. The investigation into Hillary Clinton violating all the national security regulations, releasing things that were above top secret. And he said, she asked me to just call it a matter. And that was something that, at that point, I grew a backbone, and I had to have a press conference and say, well, she's committed felonies, but I'm not going to prosecute her. See, that's what you do for your patrons. That's what he has always done for the Clintons. He has always covered for them. Going back to Whitewater, we've had the articles from Jerome Corsi, and he's going to be joining us in the next segment. He's going to be talking about this, as well as we've had the articles from Roger Stone talking about his long history with the Clintons, his long history of covering up for them. But let's talk a little bit about the collateral damage that was done to the mainstream media as well. Okay, first of all, during this hearing, he said, well, you can't really rely on the stuff that's leaked out from these people. They write about stuff that they really don't know anything about. So he kind of dumped on them. But he got even more specific when he's asked about New York Times. He said, no, that story was pretty much largely fake. And that was said a couple of times. And then also understand that beyond James Comey talking about a New York Times story being fake, we also had recently video of McCabe testifying that right after Comey was fired, the New York Times wrote a story saying that Rosenstein, who had written the memo, had been asked by the FBI director for more money for this investigation to widen the investigation. And subsequent to that, he was then fired, implying that he was fired because they were trying to increase the investigation. Now, when he testified, when Andrew McCabe, who is now the acting FBI director, testified, he flatly denied that. Here's what he had to say.
Heinrich, as to your opinion on press reports yesterday indicated that Director Comey requested additional resources from the Justice Department for the Bureau's ongoing investigation into Russian active measures.
This was a New York Times story she's quoting.
Are you aware of that request? Can you confirm that that request was in fact made?
I cannot confirm that request was made. As you know, ma'am, when we need resources, we make those requests here.
In other words, they wouldn't have done it the way the New York Times said.
That request, and it's not consistent with my understanding of how we request additional resources. That said, we don't typically request resources for an individual case. And as I mentioned, I strongly believe that the Russia investigation is adequately resourced.
Okay, so there he is, shutting down previous testimony. That's Andrew McCabe, shutting down the New York Times conspiracy narrative, which was totally false. Today we had James Comey characterized the New York Times story as completely false. And so then we have CNN, who will not admit that this was a big loss for the Democrat narrative, a big loss for the mainstream media, a big loss for James Comey. They say winners and losers from James Comey's testimony. And of course, the first winner that they have is James Comey. They say he came across as a just the facts man type of G-man, the kind that we're used to seeing in the movies. No, actually not. He wrote a very detailed memo, and then he came back and said, well, what I said and what I reported really wasn't it. It was really more my feelings and so forth. But even they had to say that Republicans are going to have a lot to say about Attorney General Loretta Lynch's insistence that he call the Clinton email investigation a matter. And then they say one of the other winners was Richard Burr and Mark Warner because of their bipartisanship. Let's understand what's going on with this. They're coming together to defend the intelligence bureaucracy that is covering up illegal actions by the Democrats, by James Comey, who are getting involved in politics. And I want to give you an example of this. Senator Grassley wrote a letter to the FBI director, James Comey, back in March. And he asked if the FBI had ever attempted to hire Christopher Steele. Remember, this was the first meeting, and it was a private meeting that James Comey initiated, not Donald Trump. And he said, I wanted to talk to him about the dirty dossier. Well, the dirty dossier was written by Christopher Steele. Charles Grassley said, why do you have him? Why did you try to hire him? Why did you have involvement with him as the FBI director? Grassley said in a letter to Comey, he said, the idea that the FBI and that associates of the Clinton campaign would pay Mr. Steele to investigate the Republican nominee for president in the run-up to the election raises substantial questions about the FBI's independence from politics, as well as the Obama administration's use of law enforcement and intelligence agencies for political ends. This was what I was most disturbed about today, was what CNN calls the spirit of bipartisanship. Yes, it is bipartisanship. It is bipartisanship to cover for the crimes of the intelligence community that is now operating as a massive Watergate plumber, dirty tricks operation. That should be very concerning. So concerning, as a matter of fact, that the FISA court just blew the whistle on this criminal action by the NSA and by the FBI under Comey. Now, when he wrote that letter in March 6th, he didn't hear anything. So he wrote another letter on April 28th. He says, I wrote you back on March 6th, Mr. Comey, requested information about your relationship with Christopher Steele. After a startling lack of responsiveness from the FBI, I was forced to delay the committee proceedings on the nomination for Deputy Attorney General in order to get the Department of Justice's cooperation and make you respond to this. He said, you sent me simply a 4-sentence letter purporting to be a response, but it wasn't. He said, I found material inconsistencies between the description of the FBI's relationship with Steele and what you provide in your briefing and information. And he has 4 things here. He says, first of all, I want you to document all payments that you made to Mr. Steele. Secondly, when the FBI was in contact with Mr. Steele, the author of the dirty dossier, and otherwise relying on information in the dossier, was it aware that his employer, Fusion GPS, was allegedly simultaneously working as an unregistered agent for Russian interests? In other words, Comey and the FBI probably had more incriminating ties to the Russians than anyone. Third, if so, when and how did the FBI become aware of this information? Fourth, if the FBI was previously unaware of this, now you know. And are you going to change your reports? Are we going to have them continue to cover up their crimes? Are they going to be a political dirty tricks operation in addition to violating the law?
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. Infowars Life Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by Infowars Life is an easy way to naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently, we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make, we fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated.
That lying son of a gun, lying today as he took the oath, just as he lied when he was sworn in and said that he would follow the Constitution and defend this country against enemies, foreign and domestic. Joining us now is Jerome Corsi, our Washington correspondent. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Corsi.
Great pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So give us your take on this hearing today. We see even people like Chris Matthews saying, hey, they just this just all fell apart for them. Yet we still have people like CNN saying, look at this. He said Donald Trump lied, so that proves it. So what's your take on this? How do you see this developing in the future? Is it simply going to be more of one side saying our guy won this?
Well, I think the American people realized that this was the end of Comey. I mean, Comey basically today, let's look at the things he admitted to. He admitted that basically Loretta Lynch obstructed justice.
Yes.
He admitted to that he leaked to the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
He admitted that the stories published in the mainstream media, including the New York Times, were fake news.
Yes.
He admitted that the Russian meme, the whole idea of Russian collusion had no basis in fact.
Mm-hmm.
He admitted he didn't have the courage to confront the president of the United States. Yes. He thought he was asking him to obstruct justice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got basically here the guy who looks like he's a aggrieved employee who's mad he was fired and didn't say a word until after he was out of a job.
Yeah. And I think, you know, as I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast, it's almost like he prepared the suicide bomb, strapped it on, and went into the Senate and blew it up. But the guy that he wanted to get wasn't there. He didn't lay a hand on Trump. I mean, it just, the whole thing came apart. Also, the idea that Flynn was somehow at the center of all this, as Chris Matthews points out, that also fell apart on this. We see him saying that, I was actually operating as a patron for them, but at some point I had to grow a spine and I had to come out and do this difficult thing of saying that even though Hillary Clinton had broken the law with multiple felonies, I wasn't going to prosecute her. So is he too big to be prosecuted? Because to me, that's the dog that didn't bark today. All of this corruption that's going on that we're hearing from the FISA court that declassified their recent decision saying, hey, the NSA violated the law, they violated the Constitution, and so did the FBI by spying on American citizens without a search warrant and by saying that they're going to do it because there's some kind of tangential information here with foreign agents, but there wasn't.
Well, clearly, I mean, you're hitting a very important point. There ought to be, from Attorney General Sessions, various investigations on this, and I think it's going to be forced because organizations, including Judicial Watch, are now going to file a whole series of FOIA requests looking for documentation, just parsing his testimony and saying, okay, what exactly happened in the Clinton investigation? What exactly was said between you and Loretta Lynch? Why did you decide to go public and say there was no reason to prosecute? I mean, this is, Comey has, it was like today the kind of swan song of the lying, corrupt Obama-Clinton administration that ends up with this civil servant who is sanctimonious. I mean, boy, does he sit up straight and, speak into that microphone and hear his voice echo through the hall while he talks about his secret squirrel notes that he wrote, because he was sure that Trump was going to lie.
Let's talk about whether or not he memorialized this at the time, because we've already had Donald Trump's personal lawyer come back and say, no, Donald Trump didn't demand loyalty from him. So they've already disputed it. It's a he said, she said, and he said that at the very beginning of his statement. He said, well, we didn't go to Attorney General Sessions because it was just my word against Donald Trump's word. But let's talk about the way that he memorialized this. I've got a clip I want to play for you and get your reaction. This is one of the clips that we didn't get to in the last section, asking why he had, writing this unclassified memo. Let's play the question from today's hearing.
Memo in a way that was unclassified. If you affirmatively made the decision to write a memo that was unclassified, was that because you felt at some point the facts of that meeting would have to come clean and come clear and actually be able to be cleared in a way that could be shared with the American people?
Well, I remember thinking this is a very disturbing development, really important to our work. I need to document it and preserve it in a way, and this committee gets this, but sometimes when things are classified, it tangles them up. It's hard.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about that. He said, this is very disturbing. And as we heard today, first he put in his thing, well, I hope that you'll let this go. So then they moved this out to make it very clear that Donald Trump was telling him to shut down this investigation for political purposes. So what he's saying here is that, well, I heard him say this. It was obstruction of justice. And so I decided that I need to memorialize it, but I didn't do it in a classified way, and I didn't tell the people at the FBI. And he just had an investigation 6 months earlier where he's looking at Hillary Clinton for putting stuff on her personal email server. And as we looked at that, we said, look, when she has a discussion with a head of state, that's born classified. Well, the same thing is true of this. If he had put this on his work computer, then it would have been memorialized as being at that time instead of something that he concocted later on. But he's throwing himself under the bus, isn't he, Dr. Corsi, by saying, yeah, I thought he was doing something inappropriate, thought he was obstructing justice, so I just made a memo to myself. I didn't tell anybody until he fired me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're exactly right. First of all, it was done on an official computer, so that makes it an official document. Secondly, the whole idea that he could then leak the document to the, this reporter from Columbia University who got it to the New York Times because it was really a private email contradicts the fact that he said it was a public document on an official computer. Now, the reality is, and I've done all kinds of training on psychological issues regarding political behavior. Well, we did a lot of terrorism work. And this is schizoid fantasy world behavior. You know, I've decided that I know that Donald Trump is lying. Well, how do you know that? Well, in my own mind, I've decided it. So I've got now my own little fantasy world.
Yeah, he doesn't even pretend that Donald Trump said that. He writes down something that's very vague, and then gradually, as they prompt him, he comes down and says, yeah, I really do feel that's what he was saying.
So, right. You know, I knew it. I mean, I had the, you know, the radar out, and I sensed it, and I felt, and, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi was standing in the background, and I had this thing, and, you know, I knew what he was saying. So I decided I was going to write it all down. And, you know, of course, he's writing it all down in a way that is as damning as possible to, you know, to Donald Trump, because he's already decided in his own mind that he's now going to frame Trump. These are his CYA in case he gets fired. He really wants to preserve his job. I mean, these all demand independent verification.
You know, one of the things that he said in this hearing, Dr. Corsi, was he said, well, when I talked to Donald Trump in this first meeting, I was talking about this dirty dossier, and I felt really like I had to come forward to him and tell him that we had this dropped on us because I didn't want to come across like J. Edgar Hoover. He's very well aware of the fact that J. Edgar Hoover was blackmailing everyone in Washington, as President Truman said, as JFK pointed out, as Richard Nixon pointed out. I believe that J. Edgar Comey knew this so much. He was a wannabe Hoover. And I believe, and we even had people talking about this from Politico saying, even Hoover didn't try to come after both candidates at the same time to make sure that he had these people investigated, because if they take him out or they do something about his violating the law and looking at citizens, then he can say, you can't investigate me. I investigated you. So that makes you look guilty.
Well, I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, here, J. Edgar Comey, which is a pretty bizarre idea. I mean, he's saying, oh, but I didn't have the courage, you know, I didn't, I mean, you know, well, this guy's the head of the FBI, you know. I mean, you know, I'm seeing people on the internet mocking it, writing, you know, that we were alone, and then it goes into it, and Trump put his hand on my thigh. And,
that's right. It's almost like a romance novel, the visceral aspect of it. He said, there was this moment of silence between the two of us, as if I thought he was going to embrace me suddenly. Thank you so much, Dr. Corsi. And, of course, Dr. Corsi did an excellent article breaking down the long, dirty relationship of Comey to the Clintons and to other people. When we come back, we're going to have highlights from today's discussion with Alex Jones about what happened today. We'll be right back.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine, or we will die. And you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research, and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities, and it's tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician, because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician, because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it, but consult your physician first before you get powerful survival shield, Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139. This is a celebration to our entire crew, our affiliates, our listeners, and to God above for the blessing of life. Just everybody, this is amazing. We totally, absolutely kicked butt. Comey melted down, Infowars and Drudge, and everybody had great coverage. There was Donald Jr. with his dad, surrogate, tweeting in live time. That was really the president, pretty much. I mean, this was, can't have the president give him too much attention. I want to give folks too much inside baseball. But this is an amazing time to have the president kicking the liar's ass in live time through his son on Twitter. A lot of it was his son as well. I was writing tweets, and then I would see that Donald Jr. had just sent the exact same thing out. Not that we're synced up, because he did perjure himself. Comey did admit he was the leaker. He did admit he was political and shut down investigations into the Clintons. He did admit that Trump wasn't under investigation. He told him that. Everything the media denied. It was a total rout. And if we let the media spin it like, well, the Russia investigation goes on, this was inconclusive, that's kind of their spin. No, they have egg on their face. They've been discredited worse than all their fake polls and the WikiLeaks and all that garbage. This is a devastating defeat for these people. Comey, Loretta Lynch, MSM, all of them. It's exactly what I'm saying, and now Trump's sending it out. Because we saw the same thing. This was a galactic rout. And we have to realize the effect you, the listeners, are having. Our affiliates, those local stations you're listening to, are the biggest heroes out there. What they get targeted with, how they get boycotted behind the scenes. You don't know, listeners. Send them $100 a week. Become a sponsor. Instead of worrying about the trolls bitching, is why I'm giving this speech, let's think about the fact that we're not perfect, but we're in the arena, like Teddy Roosevelt said. Somebody print me the arena speech, please. And we are kicking ass. Because I get mad. When I do a perfect interview the other night with Megyn Kelly, I was exhausted. They'd been here since 9 in the morning. We finished at almost 11. I did okay, but I knew they could snippet out a few things where I got tired or where stuff was going on. And I got mad at myself, was actually depressed for about half a day, and said some mean stuff about Megyn I probably should have said as well. But the point is, it didn't matter, because then I realized it didn't matter. I'm in the arena. We changed history. We're winning. We're dominating for good. Let's celebrate it. Let's be happy about it. Give me a high five. Yeah. David Knight. We're going to go to these calls. They've been holding for an hour, but go ahead.
You know, Alex, one of the things, the dog that did not bark that I was so upset about at the end of this this hearing, when Burr was summarizing everything very calmly. You know, if you want to watch the thing uninterrupted without comment, then just go to NPR and take some Prozac. But you need to understand that the real threat here, and when Megyn Kelly was here the other day, she said, what do you think about Putin? I said, he's just KGB. I said, the people we need to be concerned about are the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, who have actively engaged in politics. And we've had Senator Grassley, Senator Paul point this out. We've had the FISA court point out their crimes and do something very unprecedented. Immediately declassify a statement talking about how their court decision, talking about how the FBI and the NSA had violated laws. Where's the investigation of that? Where's the oversight of that?
And again, we've got good people in the government fighting to expose rogue elements in the government. It's not the whole deep state. I'm not defending deep state, but rogue elements in the secret government going after our president because he's a real American. He's actually trying to restore the republic.
You know, it began with Burr saying, hey, we have the obligation here at the Senate Intelligence Committee to make sure that the intelligence agencies are following the law. And that's what they did not do. They did not talk about that. But let's talk about what they did talk about. You mentioned that Comey exposed himself as a leaker. He made comments about how multiple times, yeah, that story from the New York Times, yeah, it was pretty much all fake news. It wasn't any of that true. But they were playing with semantics. There's 3 words that they're trying to leverage this in. And I was just looking at the feed that we have of CNN. Of course, they're saying, oh, Comey it was just such a big win for Comey. Oh, really? Really? Let's talk about what happened.
So now we know what they're doing. I mean, total loss, clear cut, like 75-0 football game. What's the record NFL loss? Isn't it like 89-0 or something? Matt's a big sports guy. I used to be too. Matt, what is it? Matt, look it up. What is the biggest loss ever? What is it? Well, let's look up the biggest NFL loss in history. The largest point spread. I mean, this was a rout. This was an open and shut. This was a domination. This was a bone crusher. This was an absolute complete win for the truth, a repudiation of the media, Lynch, the Clintons, Obama, the globalists, the fake Russian narrative, all of it, a vindication of our president telling us the truth, and then CNN wants to try to spin it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know, what we saw was Comey's character when they hit him on this. They said, well, what about what you did with Hillary Clinton? And he had testified that Loretta Lynch had wanted him to use the terms, we're looking into a matter, instead of we are investigating Hillary Clinton over violation.
And that's the way he spun it. What came out then is he really wanted to end a criminal investigation and just call it a matter.
That's right.
Those terms mean two different things. It isn't a semantical term. It's whether it is a matter that they're looking at investigating, that's what they first call it, or is it investigation? She was wanting to shift out of investigation into a matter.
Yes, yes.
Which is saying kill the investigation. We're going to get to your whole list.
Take him at his word. What he's doing is saying that he's susceptible to this because he wants his job.
It's so good to be crazed. It's so good to love liberty. It's so good to be alive. I had Megyn Kelly ask me, "Are you on something?" And I said, "Yeah, I've had a couple cups of coffee." David Knight doesn't even drink coffee, and David Knight is a very mild-mannered guy, but when he gets on air, it bounces off the walls. Because when you're informed and you're intellectual and you have children and you have a wife and you love your country and you want to be free and you study how evil these people are, you get in a fighting mode or there's something wrong with you. When most of these abortion places, it turns out, are doing devil worship ceremonies, and it comes out and they're keeping the babies alive. I told you that 20 years ago. Now it's mainstream news. I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people now see a woman getting mugged and do nothing. I'm not a hero. I see guys mugging some woman. I can't help it. I've got inbred switches that I turn into a killer when I see stuff like that. And when I see stuff like this, what do you think Infowars is? It's a weapon system. We're attacking the globalist. We're in a war. We hate them because we love our children. David, I got to plug and go to this caller because Cole's been holding forever. And Chris, we'll see if Anthony Comey will let us co-host with him. If not, I'll punch out. He's a great guy who has a lot to cover. I don't want to mess up his agenda. But just briefly to that, why do you get so aggressive? What are you on? Are you on freedom? Are you on Jesus Christ? Because they always ask, what am I on? I'm on not being a devil worshiper.
I did a report the other night, Alex, the difference between Islam and Christianity, and I talked about this gleeful terrorist who was the happiest. Everybody said, oh, he is the happiest I've ever seen him the day he was going out to mass murder people. And then there was the bouncer, Ozzy, at one of the bars, the guy who fought him off with his bare hands, throwing stuff at him. And
he took on 3 of them.
Yeah, this is a guy who first his instinct was to run. He didn't want to get in a fight. The guy had a suicide vest. But then he came after him because he said, if I don't do something, innocent people are going to die. That's the difference, folks, between Islam and Christianity, between the cultures and the societies that those two religions create. And that's the essence of it, Alex.
Yeah, scroll down. He got stabbed. The whole back of his neck slashed him, all in the arms. You know what they say? He reportedly kicked at least 2 of their asses and it held him off before they killed another 5-6 people for the cops to get there.
When he first saw him, they were stabbing repeatedly a woman. 3
in the
guys,
face.
Yeah, 3 guys stabbing a woman with a knife repeatedly. The 3 of them teaming up on her.
And there were reportedly like 50 men in there. This one guy he stood up, he saw it, he just said, F you.
Yeah.
He committed right there. He said, F you.
That's right. That's right. And so they beat him up and they ran out of the bar and then the police shot him. So that's how that thing ended.
He fought 3 guys with knives and ran them out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, that's the difference. You have to, at some point, we don't want to fight.
Oh, he's crazed. Oh, he's aggressive. Oh, my gosh,
Yeah.
Well, that's why they bash guys that like to go to soccer games and then they get in fights if they want. Those are still men that have the vestigial memory of fighting.
Yeah.
And you know what? The guy will beat the living hell out of you. That's what it's all about.
But we're not fighting over tribalism. We're fighting over saving innocent lives. We're fighting over our freedom, over the freedom of our children and our families and our grandchildren. That's what we're fighting about. We're fighting to save our culture, our society, our legal system. We're not going to run away. And that's the thing. At some point, you got to turn around and say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. You don't.
And then once you get committed, you get so alive. These people are all so dead because they're selfish. They want to just, the best movie, the best rock concert. I enjoy all that too. But if you're not spending a large time every day being free, you're not alive, folks. You're alive when you fight. And I know our listeners know that. But we got to reach out to more zombies before I end this hour.
That's it for tonight's news. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Knight. Join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Infowars Nightly News.
And all you ISIS people threatening us, hey, we're not a French newspaper, okay? We got people that have taken your asses out in this building right now. We're armed to the teeth, and we're not scared. You got that, you sons of bitches? This is Texas. You want to threaten me, you can go straight to hell. You understand that?
Never water yourself down just because someone can't handle you at 100 proof. It's the Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality Infowars Biome Defense Probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high quality known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.